Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is Taveau DRC teaching for Taveau Teaching Center. I'm going to just teach the basics for a short video of basically the facts of our perspective of discovery about First Church back then and now. I'm going to teach about two different definitions. One is, after research, what is called the Bible Organic Church or fellowship or ministry versus the top-down church. All right, so when we researched, we found out that when with all the submission teaching, shepherding, overseer things, ballyhoo, hoopla, going out there in different parts of the body of Christ, a lot of that we found, the reason we studied is because it was gatekeeping or it started accusation that made it more miserable to go to church, and we want people to want to go. And so we are just trying to put it out there because it's when you get in certain groups and you're stuck in a local area and all that. We're for the people and for those that do it, but people just are not ready for for the harvest. They're not ready for new visitors unless they are the same old they've met before all their life in that culture. All right. So when I researched the submission movement, submission, shepherding, NAR, apostles in the gates of the city, we're for them. They have some wonderful things, but we're working on defragging leadership, ministry, people minding business, reading their minds, and gossip, accusation, to be more like the society, the culture of a community that Paul mentioned and trained on that transfers society, that a transformed Christian community affects society. And that's what we don't have. All right. So in the day, I thought, now where did all this authoritarian come from? That's what started it. Where's the authoritarian? You know, the authority, big boss at the front, grassroots front line. So I said, now, back in the day when Jesus left to go to heaven after he died and rose again, and he left Paul, the 12 apostles, the first church, and they were known for their prayer and fasting. I thought, now, when did the authoritarians come in? What kind of church was it? Was there one type of minister or one person in charge of the whole thing? Because that's what people are acting like now, that in the front, around America. So what it was was the, we researched it, and this was the finding that the first church was on mutual submission in the fear of the Lord, Ephesians 5:21. And I said, now, is it the offices like that, the leaders like that, the elders like that, the lay like that, and married couples, men and women like that? Yes. So Bible Organic was first church, and it was not what later came to be as Constantine came, Rome came in, effects of Greek culture got into the church, into the hierarchy, the orthodoxy. When that came in, they're starting to get this form called the top-down church. That means one person, the authority over everything, and that's what we see now, mostly. So you can have the picture of the first church as servant leader, cell group. With that being said, I said, because I'm asking, because this is what charismatics always want to know. Who are you under? Are you submitted to a local pastor? Are you covered? All these things, the submission doctrine is really pretty ornery out there. And unless you've been around it and were raised under, I was not, it catches you off guard just because you're trying to go to church somewhere that you didn't know it. They had this authoritarian or control, micromanaging, keeping charge. They're over you just because you showed up on the property. That's what I found, especially if you're a woman and your husband is not beside you. So this has been over decades and decades, but also it's in the Bible Belt, and so it's a lot of places. Now, so when the authoritarians came, that is called a top-down church. So then we have the titles, and this is the next part. When we have all these people that have all these giant, august titles for all our whole lives, I'm the apostle, I'm the pastor, I'm the evangelist, it's just the way it is. I said, because I'm all five of those offices, and it bothers me personally because I don't want to be into that title thing, but I have to use it because at times you need to identify yourself, but also you have to show it because they're just as tough as can be on the front lines because they are just raised that way. And if I were just born in that culture, I'd understand it, but I had to learn about it. All right, so I asked, first of all, where's the servant leader now? Okay, that's a whole different approach. Servant leaders don't read your mind. Servant leaders approach you, they talk to you like, and they relate. That's the difference. The first church related, had community, not turf. All right, not control, not all these politics, gatekeeping things. All right. So then I asked, and I found out today, which is a great thing for me. And over here at Cross-Body Unity, this is what we're teaching, this is what we are, this is what we're saying. When you come over here, know what we're doing, and we want other people to feel, who need this, to teach it and be it. All right. You don't go by the look, you go by the heart, you go by the fruit and the character. So I was researching, and when I say I have Paul wrote, this is my first clue into that. Paul wrote about himself to the Galatians in Galatians 1, 1 and 2. He introduces himself to the letter to the leaders of the Galatians, whom he said were gone off. He said, who bewitched you, who fooled you to go back under the law, legalism. And when you have legalism, that brings accusation. You have Phariseeism, all that is legalism. I caught you, that type of thing. I caught her, I saw him. That, they're over us all feeling, instead of saying, oh, you're my brother or you're my sister. Let's ask you and relate and submit to Galatians 6:1. Let me see privately because I respect you. You're not my property. And we want to see if you're okay or if you're in sin, we'll correct you. That's Matthew 18, 15, 16 protocol of First Church, which is not done now. And Galatians 6:1, Paul said, privately, meekly confront the person, leader in private, not jump them, not to talk about them, not gossip, not suspect, not read their mind. I've dealt with this, that's why I'm saying it. Instead, you relate to them meekly in case the same sin comes upon you later, male or female. All right. So when I was getting clues of how I was feeling led, the discovery of all this, I was noticing that Paul writes about himself with a title that we would call a title. He says, I'm Paul in Galatians 1, 1 and 2. I'm Paul, not sent out by any one group, any one person, I and the brothers that are with me. Now that's a big loaded verse, all right. Paul said, I'm an apostle, that means a sent messenger, but I'm not sent out by any one person or any one group. So what's the shepherding going to do? The shepherding movement does not approve. That means they're off. That teaching in them, not calling them, accusing them, but that teaching is off. Because you don't have to do that if God tells you. Also, when I researched the shepherding movement, also the First Church, did the rules say back of the First Church that you had to be under a pastor? No. That you had to be a member of a church? No. That you had to fellowship, Hebrews 10:25, because Paul said so, that you had to or they're going to watch you? No. But that is not. It is the opposite of what you get in local areas, especially rural, small, where they've been there all their lives. And some cultures. All right. Next. So when I'm looking at Galatians 1, 1 and 2, which is this call, I've got the same. Paul writes it, and he gives me a relief because of all the title bearers, all the popular, bowing and scraping, and the bishop, everybody rise. And we're for the bishop, let him rise. But listen, over here, we're going to be servant leader. So Paul writes as our role model, as our criteria for saying it. He said to the Galatians, who are more formal, more legalistic, more, their leadership was just different, so he had to say it and let them know where he stood. He said, I'm an apostle. That doesn't mean that he was bragging. He wasn't ashamed of it, but he let them know, right? Which is right, because you're supposed to know who labors among you. When we look at how Paul writes about the word, his own title as an apostle, he uses a lowercase letter, not capital, not famous, not big shot. He uses lowercase letter. That makes me feel happy. I like that. Later, to tie that in, Paul writes in another part of his writings about himself. He says, I'm Paul. I'm an offscouring of the world. I'm just an offscouring of the world. Follow me only if I follow Christ. He says, I'm like the dung of the world, and that's who we are. That's who we are too. So Paul said, as a prototype, for those who need it, Paul says, I'm not under any one person. Even though he came later after the first 12, Jesus came, he mentored and handpicked 12 disciples. Judas fell, so he had another Matthias. But Paul was after that, and he wasn't under them. Get it? Shepherding is not, it's false, that teaching of, that subculture of doctrine. All right. It also is prone to accusation, witch watching, all sorts of things. And that is what a cult spirit, not that all of them are a cult, but that is what we found repeatedly around the United States. It's not organic to the Bible or First Church. And it is a giant accusing, witch watching subculture, which is really like the mostly males, white males, or mostly males of a patriarchy in ministry. Now, servant leader is not patriarchy. Jesus asked, was Jesus a patriarch? No, he was servant leader. He respected his mother. This is what we're trying to do. Over here is cross-body unity, the fruit. So when we're looking at Paul, Galatians 1, 1 and 2, he says, I'm an apostle. Not brag, just here's what it is. And he said, I'm not under a person or a group. Why? I know why, because I understand, I relate to that, so that he couldn't be bought, controlled, censored by the people who just were clueless or just didn't have the information he had. It's an apostle, male or female, black, white, or brown, whether it's a television station, whether it's a ministry, a business, if you feel it's God. You are the first one God tells to call you what to do and where to do it and all that, the location. But then you have your spouse. They're not the apostle, they're on the team. So are all the people that you talk to and you can impart. So an apostle, we know a lot of things about the apostle. They have signs and wonders. They do all these things to get milled and sifted and many things. And we had all that. We do all that. But that is to let you know vocabulary that it's not, that it's natural, not ostentatious, trying to prove you're the boss or the king or queen over anybody. So over here, we're making this plain. This, if we use that expression, that teaching, or that title, or that word, apostle, which is a buzzword, big buzzword with prophet, teacher, pastor, evangelist, an apostle, that is a giant buzzword. So that's why we're saying it. We want it to be resembling First Church, right? And anybody else can be the same. Now, Paul would say that he was out there. He said, I and the brothers that are with me. Well, they had relatives and mothers. In the first church, they had people that women actually taught. They had Junia, who is like an apostle. Priscilla taught Apollos. So that I asked also, this is a big, this whole film right here is the big one for submission people, and males and females. Right? So I ask, Paul says the infamous, don't let women speak in the church, don't let women have authority, and that's fine. You can believe that. It doesn't bother me, because we're going to do it. God says, according to his call in Philippians 2:12, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling, and we were very respectful, and I'm submitted to all in First Church, like Paul, Ephesians 5:21. Mutual submission in the fear of the Lord. I read the boundaries. If I go to your ministry, I'm not in charge. I defer to you. I'm quiet. I am very polite. And when I am off the property and it's over, the service is over, I'm myself, I'm the boss. They had one again. Now let's do this. This is very big. This next part is very big for the country. When we were researching about the use of titles, which to me, I go way back to the 70s and the 80s. The 80s, I had my own ministry. I was out with the different ones, mostly charismatic, and it was rural central Virginia, small churches where a lot of people had been raised protected and not dysfunctional and educated, even Bible educated in theology of generations. So that it's nothing better, it's just a perspective. But I saw a lot of people in that day when TV came and media, Jim Baker on, that a lot of people got saved, gloriously saved, from watching TV. And then Trinity came in our area, and I saw that. And I saw the effect on it. And I saw the glossy magazine from Florida, the charismatic magazine, come in, and I saw, oh, because it was the fad, everybody thought that's what you do. It was new. And I saw people react differently, and I wasn't afraid of it. I just thought, I don't feel it. I feel like, I just had a sound, sort of a Billy Graham depth, and nothing was better or worse. It's a perspective, and you can grow in every perspective. I was much more shy, the shrinking violet back then, right? And they were not. When we looked at the titles, I remember being in the day. Now, I'd lived in Virginia Beach, and I'm a very cosmopolitan person. They don't do that, in the bigger cities. But where I was in my location, I started to notice the peers of my coming up in ministry type, what they did and did not do. And mostly were men. And I lived in a certain part of the county, but I was also invited to pastors' gatherings in a different part, which was more diverse, with suburbs and urban and more, I guess to say, more highly educated. So everybody's equal. But I can tell a difference in the respect, in the men and women respect. I can tell a difference. All right. I want to get to this because my battery's running out. In light of all the titles I started, everybody wanted to get a title. Everybody, that's the big thing. Get your title, your business card, your 501c back then, at least charismatic. All right. Their friend. Today, I look back with this is the big part. Do you realize that when you look at the word apostle, when Paul writes apostle in Ephesians, teacher, pastor, prophet, especially pastor and prophet, pastor, and apostle, the A word and the P words are the big ones. All right. Everybody says we're people think it is achievement, ambition, certain ones, not all. We've been out with there. We've seen it. We've seen far too much, and a lot of it can be very dysfunctional and keep people lorded over you, and money is involved. Right? Shaming people and cults can grow out of, it's the authoritarian top-down church, small, micro, mini, and big. But what we discovered has changed and transformed my freedom to call myself all these offices. Let me say this. This is an office, all five by God's grace, great dad who's a pastor, not ashamed, but it bothers me. And I will say prophet here and there because that stands for something with certain people. But when I researched how they say, see, every time Paul writes bishop, pastor, and any of those offices, he uses lowercase letters. So I wanted to know about that because that means something to me, servant leader. Right? Turns out that the people in the first church who were all servant leader, humble, fasting, and prayer, black and white. Well, I don't know how many white ones are there. It was in the Middle East. So they were at least, they were the Romans, maybe that's the son of the Caucasian, but they had the Greeks, the Scythians, they had all the different ones from Africa and Asia and all these ones, right? Jesus was Middle Eastern, not white. Well, in that mixture of discovery of the first church, they had all the people teaching the offices, and it started to develop, and Paul was writing about it. But when we researched it, we found out that instead of using titles, this is it, when they didn't use title, they described the office like an apostle as a function. That is it. The office, when you say the word apostle, it's your function. You do you trailblaze, you impart, you have all these different things that go with the office of the apostle. Same with the pastor, same with the prophet. Instead of saying, oh, we're the capital P, we're the capital A apostle, well, let's announce you as a, no, they're supposed to be servant leaders. Humble, relatable, teaching, preaching, whatever they're doing, reaching the lost, but also winning the souls and also being there as a servant leader. So there is a function. We are talking, so if I use it from now on, I'm going to have to do it a few more times because it's still hard to do this, to call yourself that. But if I say, announce that, this is that, I'm an apostle Taveau, let's say that. It bothers me to say it because I know what it means out there to so many, but I can say I'm meaning it as a function. This is how I function. I have a lot to say, a lot to teach, a lot I can do to impart with worship as well. Holy Spirit, Book of Acts, wisdom, creativity, many things for this move of God to help people as a resource, right? So then if you say you're the prophet, it's the same thing. It's not a capital P over here at Crossbody Unity. It is a, hey, servant leader, we're in office, we're mature, we're senior office, not playtime, not pretending, but we know what it is. We can teach on that, but it is to bring humility. It is to bring servant leadership to the United States across the board. And why? You look at Paul, the first church, he was writing humility. In his writings, he said in Ephesians 4, the key, not well taught at all. He said, walk it out in meekness and lowliness and long suffering, endeavoring to keep the bonds of peace together, to the churches, to the offices, to those that be Christ followers, okay? But do you hear that? No, it's about it's ambition now, a lot of it. A lot of it is not relationship unless you're denominational. So I'm teaching charismatics, basically reform, even though there's some remnant. All right. And I'm teaching me, watch myself. But we're saying that we need to really get over the turf, that it's about me and my style and our foreign number, all that Phariseeism, neo-Phariseeism and dogma of groups of tradition, of their own tradition of men that make the move of God null and void. That's a scripture. Back in the 80s, my battery may leave, but I wanted to make sure I got this out. All right, I remember in the 80s when the faith movement came in and I was learning about that and the Holy Spirit, and I'd hear people talking back then. They'd warn the people who were denominationals, not me, because I was interested. They'd warn the people, don't quench the Holy Spirit. Don't, those traditional men you have, you denominationals, are going to make the Spirit of the Lord null and void, the move of the Spirit. And I went, oh yeah, we don't want to do that, Now, all those moves from the 80s, most of them that are now famous and have many, many people under them, not the top ones, I'm not saying that, but the people that are under them have a tradition of their kind. They have their own Phariseeism, they have their own charismatic to the Pope, like a Pope to these people, whether their Pope is well known, black, white, or it's that loyalty to the top down authoritarian, the top down church. I'm not saying or attacking the top people. They didn't know, I didn't know. And a lot of the ones at the top are pure in hearted and mature. They didn't know that TV, time, things would go sideways at the grassroots because you can mix with all the false religion or your own family or whatever. You have your culture that you never left town. So you can get the good, you can have the many wonderful things they're saying at the top. It's many, this is the teaching phrase. There's many a slip between the cup and the lip. The cup being the top, let's see, the lip. The cup is the filled lips of the oracle at the top of the movement on television, on media. And they can train all the people out here, get it, and they're under the disciple. I'm for Paul, I'm for Apollos, famous so-and-so. And then they get it, and their lips are filled with the glad tidings, so they go to their community where we live, and they tell everybody all the things they think that they heard from the top person, but really they get it off because they're dysfunctional, or they're into making money, or they're users, or they're mind reading, or they're biased, or they're they're totalitarian or something, but also the good ones. So you got America today. That's what this is. When I go as myself. I try to be myself. I don't try to I don't take over. I don't, I read boundaries. I've had much experience, and even I'm a dressed down person right now, and I prefer that because there's so much going on. But I have been in a more formal setting and dealt with formal ministries through and prayer ministries and prayer moves in different parts of the town, more the city, more the suburbs. But then I moved to the rural in Virginia, where I didn't know shepherding existed. I didn't know Levitical patriarch existed. And I was oblivious. I thought, all right, I'm kind, and you want to support the local saints, go to the revivals, you want to learn about worship, charismatic move, charismatic. But all the rules came in at the grassroots. I wasn't famous, but I had my own ministry, my own authority. I didn't know what I know today. And I will say it was not that highfalutin back there. But I don't know what it's like. Then back in years, but then I went to study Florida. I went to North Carolina at a conference. The Lord led me around the United States, Tulsa many times, to where the movements are and herds of people were coming. Then I was in Dallas 15 years. Now I'm in Charlotte, which I really like. But the idea is nobody knows it all. But I've had experiences for a long time, which I can help you. I can commiserate. I can give you, help you take inventory. But I can also see the perspective of what is happening now since the 70s, Jesus people, charismatic renewal, with television coming in the late 80s, Jim Bakker and Jim Swaggart and their scandals. And then I saw whatever else is going on. And then in the late 1990s, the culture of America and the media started getting more materialistic. The lifestyles of the rich and famous, MTV, Cribs, all these things which are trying to make big, in Hollywood. So then we see a difference in the churches and a self-righteousness coming along, because now they're, we're the big ones. We made it, whatever that is. Not everyone. But I never seen so much in the last 15 to 20 years of charismatics getting their new traditions of men needing to be worshipped. I mean, I can't do it because I'm going to run out of this battery. It's, the little red thing's on, and I've said what I need to say. And we're for the people, but this is for reform, not for me. This is for, I found out the hard way, very hard, how treacherous it is with the people who are conditioned. We need to be the next famous celebrity. We need our blessing. We need to be promoted. We need to have our turf. We need it. See, that's it. We, not God, not servant leader. And that's why I'm out. That's why I'm out. The attack, the gossip, the spying, the treachery. I cannot tell you the treachery. Why? Why don't you talk to me if you got a bone to pick? I just didn't know it. And now we have our teaching for everybody who needs it, our teaching center. And we teach from the online perspective. There's no place like home. Now we know why there's not just the apostasy starting in the last days, the decline in church going, which has happened during this time. We have also the running away, the need to escape from what I've seen in certain places, too many places. We also have the holy fear of the Lord remnant, which is this, that knows their Bible, that Paul said in the last days there'd be perilous times. From such turn away, and he listed two scriptures, 2 Timothy 3, 1 through 8, 1 Timothy 6, 5, get out, and we did. So we want to stir it up, that's it. We're trying to stir it up. A lot of snakes in the grass, in the grassroots. Listen, stuck up snakes in the grass. I don't want to be there, but I'm here, and I'm a peer. I just wasn't given that route to go, but now it's time to come out, because we were in bed. We sacrificed a lot of things to know this, but we also know that we are packaging our movement. God has given me a movement. It's not celebrity. It's not celebrity. Now we are for people with renown. You can be the celebrity, male or female, black, white, or brown, but we're going to treat you like a real person with respect. Okay, we'll honor you if you're more famous and well known. We'll be very respectful. But I will not play time with people in the dysfunctional wannabeism that is giant and mega. The mega fan clubs are out here that we have to deal with if we want to go to worship, if we want to get in their midst just to go to a conference. That's it. I just didn't realize it. But on the other hand, as I close, I'm very excited. I feel very joyous. I really do. I feel like I didn't know that WELP existed, Western European Levitical Patriarchy, the patriarchy of ministry, shepherding, Laudanar, CI. We're pro the people, we're not angry, but we are not. We are fed up with false religion. We are fed up with being defiled to show up. We're being defiled by the witch watchers, by the Eli Template priesthood, many and women. A lot of, and I'm speaking on many, including black people. I'm speaking on behalf as a prophet to the United States, to the prophet to ministry, the off-scouring of the world, who may be this old but feels really young thanks to all these movements. I feel 28. I really do. I don't feel any older. I am looking older, but I think young. I think, let's hear what the youngest people are saying, the new move coming up from the generation beta. It's generation Z, Y, X, and A, and now beta's been born in 2025. Let's hear what they're going to say in a couple of years out in the nursery. But I also I'm really a bridge, a branch. I can go with the older ones or younger, but I like younger. I really think younger. I just hang with younger better, but it's cross-generational. Take up your cross and go generational, it really is. The Bible teaches us a great psalm. Psalm 112 is a great psalm for the righteous man. You want to get that out, internalize it, men or women. It says, this generation shall be blessed. And I speak, no matter what your race, no matter what your style, no matter what generation you are living in, that God wanted you in, he put you in this certain generation, X, Y, Z, boomer, whatever like that. He put you in there for a reason. He sent you in that part of time for you to know about it, for you to be effective by it, and not be moved by it. And that's what we're letting you know. We've been, we're doing, God has kept me through a lot of dysfunction that I never knew I'd ever go through. Not my family, not my mom and dad. It was afterwards. And every one of these people was an aggressive, materialistic, mammon-centric, quasi-Christian. Everyone. Nobody else. Isn't that amazing? You look back and you think, what's that common factor? Was it whelp? A lot of it. Not saying it's perfect. And there are people that are all colors that are doing it. I'm just letting you know that we have some style, we have some skill at understanding the subcultures that are affecting the nation and the society. All right, Ephesians 4. If you don't know Ephesians 4, read it. The transformed community, that means the offices have to train it. They have to function in teaching in their functions. The people have to know about it to do it. They have to act it out and walking it out, meekness and lowliness, relationship, respect, all forms, all styles of Christian. Why? Because it says in Ephesians 4, later in the mid part, it says, when the Christians have gotten their act together and that community is transformed, it affects society. It affects society. It is not biased. It is not, oh, we're the elite. We're going to use you. We're going to put you under, you're our property. If you show up on the property, hey, that's out there. But we're not mad. We're not offended. On behalf of the many people who are so wonderful that don't want to go to church, we're fed up. That's all it is. God bless you. He loves you. He needs you, though. He needs you. Anybody who's not a believer, that's fine. We just think you are respected and valued, but I have to tell it straight to the Christian. God bless. This is Taveau DRC. Signing off for now. God bless. If you have a question, you want to comment, you want to get in touch, just write me at Crossbody Unity. And we're going to teach on money, righteous money. We've thought about it. Oh my gosh. So later, another time on this channel. God bless.